what does that say when John Bolton sounds far more reasonable, far more rational than the president of the United States? The president of the United States looks like a deranged, delusional hawk when compared to John Bolton when discussing action against Iran. Not a good thing. Not a good thing, and not a good thing for the U.S. troops, especially that are in the region. If there's one thing I've noticed with the Trump administration over the past, year plus, it's that every single time that they've done a military operation, right, they've had a lot of leaks because the administration is not as gung-ho across the board as it may believe, as it may be in the upper echelons of power between Rubio and Vance, General Kane, and some of the others, right? And there's been a lot of leaks about military plans. So we've seen Tucker Carlson, we've seen John Kiriakou, we've seen many others, Thomas Massie, right, come out and leak information ahead of when these strikes are set to take place, and then they get delayed. So I find it a bit odd that Marco Rubio announced today that he was going to be giving a briefing to House and Senate members on Iran at the White House today. I find it a bit weird because usually they're only ever briefing members of Congress if they have an understanding that this message or this information is going to get leaked. If you remember, before Maduro was kidnapped, there was information leaked to Massie, Thomas Massie, who then leaked it to Tucker Carlson, and Tucker reported on it, saying that war was about to begin on Venezuela.
Trump took a dump on the Ford.
Could be that war was about to begin on Venezuela, and then war didn't begin on Venezuela. I guess it was like a fake out, part of their plan. And then, several days or weeks later, we had the kidnapping of Maduro. So I feel like they do this on purpose sometimes. I feel like the whole thing with John Kiriakou just felt very off. I felt like, and it's not to call into question his character, but he said, someone at the CIA told me this. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe he's your friend. Maybe he's given you true information before in the past about other things. But like, this is such a big thing that if someone did have a way to contact John Kiriakou, someone that does have like a certain track record of saying things that are factual, and he is very popular on the internet right now, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, right? That maybe they would feed him false information about a strike on Iran taking place either yesterday or tonight. Didn't take place yesterday, to try and, freak the Iranians out or achieve whatever goals they have in mind, okay? Now, oil companies around the world are currently advising their staff not to travel to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, and Qatar. We also saw that the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon has evacuated. And that is a very big deal because there's a lot going on in Lebanon, and Israel is doing more and more strikes on Lebanon once again. And the U.S. has one of the biggest footprints diplomatically of any country in the world in Lebanon. It's basically Lebanon, Iraq, well, Iraq's the biggest, Iraq, Nigeria, and Lebanon, okay? That's where they have the biggest or are building the biggest consuls and or embassies. Iraq, Nigeria, and Lebanon. White House spokeswoman Karoline Leavitt came out yesterday and said they are going to war with Iran because some folks in Iran were chanting death to America. Well, look, Iran chants death to America, so you tell me if that's a threat. I kid you not. At least during the Iraq war, we got like a really exciting, big, dangerous, scary lie of WMD, weapons of mass destruction. Now we get, there was a person on the side of the road chanting death to America. So we're going to go in and we're going to bomb the living shit out of all of them. A country of 90 million people, destabilize the whole region, major trade and security partner of Russia and China. And we're just going to rain hell down upon these people because we saw someone on a video maybe chanting death to America.
But what the United States is doing to ensure that not only America is the safest country in the world, but remains the strongest country in the world. Well, look, Iran chants death to America. So you tell me if that's a threat. Elena.
Highest IQ Zionist. Highest IQ Zionist, Karoline Leavitt. Now, we have also seen, we're seeing reports on everything. President Trump has grown increasingly frustrated with what aides describe as the limits of military leverage against Iran, with military planners telling the president that any strike on Tehran's assets would almost certainly not be a singular decisive blow, and said limited strikes could open the door to wider confrontation, one that risked drawing the United States into a protracted conflict in the Middle East, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter who spoke to CBS News. Now, we've also seen this reported in the New York Times and CBS, Axios. Trump came out and said, it's all fake. General Kane didn't say this stuff, right? Totally fake, totally didn't happen. But I actually totally believe that this did happen, because Trump also said that there are no limited strike plans being presented to him. Of course they've been presented to him. Of course they have been. So he was trying to say that's fake. The worries are fake. The concerns are. It's like, bro, what do you mean? Of course there's going to be concerns. Of course you're going to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. Of course you're going to have the least case, worst case scenario, best case scenario, limited strike, full strike. You're going to have every single option presented to you for a decision of this magnitude. So I say he's lying about this. I think he has been presented with all this stuff. And I do think that there are people who are not necessarily concerned about a long-term war. I think that I think they'd be happy with a long-term war. Don't get it twisted. Some people are going to come out here and say, oh, General Kane, he's like, he's the voice of reason because he's warning about the odds of a long-term war in Iran. No. He's not warning about the odds of a long-term war in Iran. He's saying, yeah, that's probably going to happen, but I'm sure he would be very happy about that. And all his buddies in, the military industrial complex would also be happy about it, right? Trump is just simply being told that you're not going to strike once and the Islamic Republic is going to come crashing down. That's not going to happen. All right, you're going to kill a lot of people. You're going to kill important people, probably. But it's not going to take down the Islamic Republic. It's just not going to happen. So, we have to be realistic about this stuff. I'm sure it would be the happiest day in the world for many people in the Pentagon, many people in the State Department, if in fact they did secure a long-term war against Iran by launching massive strikes. Now, Elijah Magnier, who's he's a very good commentator and expert on the Middle East, said, it looks like the possibility of a U.S.-Israel war in Iran has gone down to less than 50-50. The multiple messages Iran has received from Benjamin Netanyahu, an ICC fugitive for war crimes, via Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, and the U.S. message conveyed via a third party indicate significant de-escalation from the U.S. side and a firm position from Tehran's side. Now, those statements through Russia are actually quite old. It's several months old, right? And it was before the whole buildup in the region. But what I will say is that the longer this goes on, I feel it's almost a guarantee that something will be done. It's not like they're just sitting there and doing nothing. They are still sending more, albeit less over the past few days, because how much can you send? But they are still sending more U.S. military assets to the region. A lot of people had this sort of feeling when the Venezuela buildup was going on. They said, everyone was saying, like, how can you, they're waiting so long. Are they actually going to do something? Maybe they're not going to do something. Maybe they're going to run home. No, that's not Trump's business. He doesn't run home. Okay, he understood what the Venezuelans had to offer. He understood what Maduro was offering, but he still needed some red meat, right? So he still went in and kidnapped the president and his wife. And then he went through with all the plans and proposals that Maduro had made to him, but with the next in line, which was Delcy Rodriguez, the new president of Venezuela. So my thinking here is that even if Iran did make these concessions, even if they did say all this crazy stuff, which they're not going to do, by the way, he would still need some red meat, if not for his own personal ego, if not for his poll numbers, if not to satiate Netanyahu. I mean, there's so many reasons why he needs some red meat here. And the Iranians are not going to capitulate, as Steve Witkoff said. Even John Bolton is now coming out and saying this. Simple fact, right? But when John Bolton is saying it, you know you got a problem, right? John Bolton claims arresting or killing Iran's leadership is possible. However, he points to Maduro's operation as a case study in how not to do regime change, since capturing Maduro did not topple his inner circle. The Revolutionary Guard would still hold power. Eliminating the Ayatollah wouldn't instantly collapse the regime. The Ayatollahs serve as a religious cover, an ideological cover for them. He also said that Special operations on the ground in Iran are possible, but a full U.S. invasion is not happening. We're not prepared. He adds that Trump is hoping a show of force will intimidate the Ayatollah, but warns they won't be scared. Trump thinks minute by minute, not strategically. I mean, it's incredible. No one on the face of the planet probably wants regime change in Iran more than John Bolton. But here you have him being, not a voice of reason, but at least realism. Somewhat. Kind of. He's at least saying that, if you kill the people, if you do some blowout strikes, you do some Delta Force operation, whatever it may be, okay, Iran is going to still stand, right? Iran will still stand, and you're just going to inspire a zeal amongst the public that you could never imagine, especially attacking during Ramadan, right? He also pointed out that, we're not prepared. We have all these military assets in the region, but we're not prepared. We can't do troops on the ground in Iran. So, what does that say when John Bolton sounds far more reasonable, far more rational than the president of the United States? The president of the United States looks like a deranged, delusional hawk when compared to John Bolton when discussing action against Iran. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. And not a good thing for the U.S. troops, especially that are in the region. Dropsite News reports that several people around President Trump are urging him not to bomb Iran. Senator Lindsey Graham reportedly told this to Axios, saying that the president should ignore them. The top Trump advisors told Axios that Trump, who has been presented with military options that include killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and his son, has not yet made a final decision. And what's so crazy about this is Khamenei's son is as I understand, I try to stay up to date with all the Iranian sources. And what you hear consistently from all the Iranian sources is, I believe this is the correct information, but Khamenei's son is has no political aspirations. They want to kill him because they're they just think in this sort of dynastic mindset with Iran that, okay, if we kill Khamenei, he's old, well, his son's going to take over. But his son has no political aspirations. He's not that guy, at all. And just killing him would just be, again, it would inspire zeal amongst the population. It would infuriate the population. The martyrdom of Khamenei's son, it doesn't do anything insofar as, cutting off the head of the snake as Trump views it. It's just very stupid. Officials are signaling limited flexibility, with a senior U.S. official saying Washington would consider an Iranian proposal allowing token uranium enrichment as long as it leaves no path to a nuclear bomb. At the same time that people are allegedly telling Trump not to bomb Iran, Trump is posting videos of Mark Levin casting doubt on the efficacy of nuclear negotiations, of diplomacy with Iran, and he's pushing for war. So it seems like Trump is definitely liking what the Levins, the Ben Shapiros of the world have to say. And by the way, as a last point, remember when Trump said that on the campaign trail that Jared Kushner would play no part in his second presidential term? I guess that was before Miriam Adelson made her $200 million plus donation to the Trump campaign, because not only is he playing a role in the Trump administration in this second term, he is playing probably the largest role of anyone. It's been said, these leaked Epstein files revealed that Kushner effectively ran the first Trump White House. And that appears to be what we're getting now, because not only is Kushner now involved in Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and Iran, he's also even now involved, along with Witkoff and some other dual citizen, in the negotiations with Russia. So Trump has basically handed over all of the most important decisions on a day-to-day basis of his second term, the legacy that he will hold, to Jared Kushner. Trump-Iran airstrike's decision to be guided by Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff's advice. And okay, well, they've been saying that, we want the diplomacy, but they're also the ones that have been going to the diplomatic team with the Iranians, Arakchi, and they've been saying all these crazy things, handing them notes saying no ballistic missiles. The Iranians didn't even open the letter about the no ballistic missiles before they went and met the Iranians for the first time in Muscat, Where did they go? They went to meet with Netanyahu, IDF chief of staff, Unit 8200 chief, all these guys in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem, I believe it was actually, before they went and had their first round of negotiations with the Iranians. So my opinion still stands. I do believe that still we're going to have war. I do. Here's what I'll say. Have I had any change of opinion? My opinion is that we are going to have something. Just as there was something that happened in Venezuela. Well, we're getting to the point now where it's like, okay, in Venezuela, they kind of realized that a protracted, long-term Vietnam-style guerrilla war was not going to go well for the United States. So they did this and banked on the idea that they had that they would be able to have, you know, basically the command and order of Delcy Rodriguez, the new president, right? Now, they don't have any sort of fallback mechanism, foolproof plan, or even a half-proof plan for Iran if they were even to, you know, airstrike the president, the Ayatollah, God forbid. But they do need some red meat. So 100% Trump's going to get some red meat for Adelson, for Kushner, for Netanyahu. But as for a war, yes, I still believe it's going to happen. Do I think, I mean, really, as to whether or not it's going to be a long-term war depends on how the Iranians respond. That's the simple truth of the matter. It depends how hard they go. Are they going to go max, or are they going to, you know, do some tit-for-tat stuff? That's the question. So we'll see what Trump says tonight in his State of the Union. I am not hopeful. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.